Are you a change maker? Are you a thought leader? Are you a courageous innovator? Does injustice and inequality bother you? As members of the racialized and marginalized communities, Dr. Danisha McCall, Reverend Dr. Candace Kelly, and mental health professional Janae Hicks collaborated to answer the call and respond to the urgency of now to create the Equitable Empathy Experience Program. Over the past several years, there has been a growing awareness of the importance in giving compassionate, equitable, and empathic care and the direct connection to better outcomes, particularly for racialized and marginalized communities. This program teaches that providing care through the lens of equitable empathy narrows the gap of disparity. By participating in this program, leaders will understand that to have equal outcomes, care must be equitable and provided with empathy. This program is uniquely designed to move motivated leaders through a 6-stage process of guided mastery of exposure to develop a healthy culture of equitable empathy. So we invite you to participate in the Equitable Empathy Experience Program to become an equitable, empathic leader and experience transformational change for you, your organization, and the communities you serve. So don't wait, the time is now. So our son was desatting in the 60s, and the ear, nose, and throat doctor came and said that it was our son's fault and not the trache's fault why he was desatting, and that it was our son was lazy. And those words may have been fine maybe in the doctor realm, but for a parent to hear that their son is lazy, who was a premature child, it really struck a chord versus times that we have dealt with doctors that have compassion or had this kind of grace with their patients and their parents. Those doctors wouldn't tell us that our son's lazy. They would say something along the lines of, oh, maybe your son, he's just a little forgetful, or your son had a rough day, and then they wouldn't tell what that day meant. Those doctors that went above and beyond, I feel like we would go probably in your hoops and mountains to go to a hospital that those doctors were trained in kind of an equitable, compassionate care regimen, because then you don't have parents that feel left out. Right next to us, we had a family that they only spoke Spanish. And my wife kind of got mad at me because the husband was asking in Spanish to the nurse, like, what's going on with my kid? And the nurse looked at him like, I don't know. I don't speak Spanish. I don't know what you're saying. So I tried talking to him and letting him know that, they're doing what they can. And they finally brought over a machine to translate. But that parent told me he never got checked on as much as we did. He never got that tender love and care that we got.
Make a huge difference in the way things are presented to parents. And when you're already in a place of so much fear, it is very difficult to hear certain things at times. And so when someone is able to kind of put their self aside and put themselves in your shoes and how you're feeling, and obviously all of the things going through your head, it really makes a huge difference in the experience, because it is very difficult. So, yeah.
One of the times that stands out for me was actually with Dr. McCall. So I was scared because I had just met this doctor who took the time out of her day to talk to me and tell me what's going on. And I looked at her and I said, you're like our fairy godmother. And she goes, I hate to tell you this, but I'm leaving for a month. And I was shocked. I said, will my son be here in a month? Actually with Dr. McCall. So I was scared because I had just met this doctor who took the time out of her day to talk to me and tell me what's going on. And I looked at her and I said, you're like our fairy godmother. And she goes, I hate to tell you this, but I'm leaving for a month. And I was shocked. I said,
will my son be here in a month? And every doctor I talked to before that's like, well, we can't tell you, or we don't know. And I think they say it right. And she's the one who I coined it from, is there's such thing as hope and there's such thing as false hope. I feel like Danisha never gave us, Dr. McCall never gave us false hope. And she told me, your son, right now, based on everything, he'll be here in a month. And you know what? When she came back in a month, I had never smiled bigger, because not only was she back, but our son was still there.
Nobody gets pregnant and says, oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't wait to meet the neonatologist. I can't wait to go to the NICU. I can't wait to get pregnant and then have a baby and then go home without my baby.
No, it's not. Yeah, obviously that's not the ideal situation and not at all what I was expecting when I found out I was pregnant. And just throughout my hospital stay, I was not, I would say, completely lucid, because I was on, so many medications, and this, just the whole experience just felt very surreal the whole time. And when I was discharged, I still kind of didn't feel, I guess, like super connected to the whole situation. And we went home, and it was literally, we had just gone to sleep, and then I get a phone call, and they're like, your son needs to be transferred. He is critical. He needs to go to a better hospital that has more equipment that he can be helped with. And that was just extremely terrifying, because you're just like, oh my gosh, we literally just got home, and now we're driving almost 2.5 hours to this other hospital. We had no clue what was going on, and we're just speeding our way down there. And even when we did get there to do the transfer, it just took a really long time for everything to get the whole transport team. And I just remember meeting some of the doctors there that they were going to transport Lucas, and it just, I don't know. I don't think it ever really hit me, to be honest, about everything that was happening and how serious the situation was. I don't think anyone ever really conveyed that to us. And I don't even think I really felt that way until we got to Miller's, and just kind of them letting us know how bad and how sick he really was. And I think that's kind of when it kind of sunk in a little bit, wow, this is really what we're going through. We're really in the NICU. We're really struggling to survive every day. And it was just beyond scary. You kind of just don't even know how to feel. And I think from a mom's perspective, it's very difficult as well, because there's this huge sense of guilt surrounding it. Just feeling like it's your fault and you couldn't protect your child. So it's very hard.
Did you ever get a sense that you missed out on some opportunities just to be Lucas's mom?
Oh, definitely. I was actually just talking about this with Isaiah the other day. A lot of the times I felt like because he was so sick and had so many procedures done that we weren't able to hold him during those times where he was healing. And understandably so, but it did feel very much like you were being taken this other thing away from you. The one thing that you feel like you can really do for them is, to hold them and to make them feel comfort. So many of the days we weren't able to do that. And that is something I wish that we could have had more of.
It was offered to you during those times in the NICU that you were offered later, potentially, that could have been done during those times. It was like, if you would have offered me that then, it would have been a little bit different.
I think, just because in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think just as you're in there, like you start learning things and you start realizing like, oh, there are other options. And, just the ability to do his cares. I don't think we learned about that until, I don't know, he was already in there for like a month. And just anything that we could have done to just have more interaction with him.
And appreciative of everything that God has allowed me to do. Everybody doesn't have the opportunity to live in their purpose and their calling. I am one of the ones that get to do that every single day. I have the pleasure to take care of people's babies. They blindly trust me to take care of the most important and the precious gifts that God has given them. I get to give them hope. I get to give them confidence. And I get to do it because I love to do it. And it's my favorite thing to do. And because of that, that's why I chose to reimagine justice differently.
That I'm literally pushing and asking over and over and over again if they can just grant my request of allowing the NICU up to see if there was anything that they could possibly do.
Yeah, even so much so to the point of having to deal with different people saying the same things.
With that, I'm literally pushing and asking over and over and over again if they can just grant my request of allowing the NICU up to see if there was anything that they could possibly do.
Yeah, even so much so to the point of having to deal with different people saying the same things over and over again.
It was like a zoo in there. At least had to be over 20 people.
At least that's how it felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of folks. And with even through all of the combativeness in that moment, it wound up still being able to work out because when they finally did get the NICU up there, everything went fast.
Yes.
But the longest portion of it was really just getting to the beginning of like getting past having the conversation in the first place, being able to still maintain our own aspect of hope in the middle of them telling us what they told us. That was actually really tough to have to do.
I kind of felt like I had to make sure that I learned everything and learned it fast. So that way, when it was time for me to speak up or advocate for my daughter in this space, I too would be speaking their language and I would be taken seriously. Because, to be honest, when you're talking about equitable care, I think sometimes the definition of that is different amongst whoever is providing the care. And sometimes people are basing the care that they provide off of past experiences that they've had in their profession. And I think we kind of brushed up against that a lot, more so in labor and delivery, not as much in the NICU unit.
Yeah. It definitely shows to be a culmination of one's normal experiences due to somebody's occupation, as opposed to it being a very life-changing event for family, and taking that into consideration. I think there is something to be said about when you are doing something like that in repetition, you kind of lose the emotional sensitivity of what it actually is to go through it. Whether you've been through it or not, you kind of lose that because you see it all the time. And so you have your expectations and you're looking to kind of go through your day so you can get your job done. And for us, this is something that pretty much is a moment in time that becomes frozen, isolated inside of our minds.
And then it also is a delicate balance between, even though this is a hospital setting and the situation may be dire, parents may know best about their child. And so you need to kind of weigh that into your level of expertise as well. Yeah. There was one time too where it was time for a certain vaccine and we were given the information from the doctor concerning it. And I took the paperwork and I said, okay, I'll get back to you on whether or not my husband and I want to do that, because we just like to discuss everything first. And neither one of us like to make any decision, separately. Mm-hmm. And so in me saying I'll wait because I need to discuss this first, it then turned into this particular doctor crying and then basically saying, like, I've worked in my position for years. I've seen what it looks like when children don't get this particular vaccine. I've seen some die. I've seen this, and just all of these horrific things that she's experienced. And then ending it with, I don't want that for your child. And I realized in that moment that had I responded a certain type of way, then I would have been deemed an angry parent, or sometimes even an angry Black woman in that position. But here, this particular doctor is weaponizing her tears to turn the attention onto her. And it just felt like she wasn't taking into consideration just all that we were going through at the time and the emotions that we were, feeling at the moment. Because even though we were very heartbroken and hurt and tired, we felt like we couldn't really show that at the time, because you have to be strong. You have to be strong for your kid and whatever's happening. So it just felt like a weird position to be in, to have to then console a doctor for her stance when we really needed a lot of love and consoling in that moment.
The equity needle had kind of moved some, but not significant enough to impact the data of our Black mothers in maternal morbidity and our infant mortality. And so while I had been, as you know, doing training with some of the cohorts of the nurses that were coming in with the research I was doing, we noticed you really can't impact all the workforce if you don't have full buy-in at the top. If the leadership is not necessarily on board with equity change and understanding racialized medicine, understanding structural racism, then you're spinning your wheels. Right. You have to have buy-in. And so when we connected on a couple of the occasions and understood what you were doing and understood what I was doing, I was really impacted when I learned about Reimagine Justice MD, and your coaching and the diversity and equity and all the wonderful work you were doing. I said, wait a minute. I understand some of the gaps of what we need in our labor and delivery, our birth care center as a whole. And so I said, I need to talk to our leadership. And if we can get this collaboration going, I think we can do more than move the needle. I think we can take a deep dive and really approach, address, and impact this structural racism. Yes. And so thank God when we met collectively, our leadership, she saw it. They saw it, and we birthed EEP. Right. And the equity needle had kind of moved some, but not significant enough to impact the data of our Black mothers in maternal morbidity and our infant mortality. And so while I had been, as you know, doing training with some of the cohorts of the nurses that were coming in with the research I was doing, we noticed you really can't impact all the workforce if you don't have full buy-in at the top. If the leadership is not necessarily on board with equity change and understanding racialized medicine, understanding structural racism, then you're spinning your wheels. Right. You have to have buy-in. And so when we connected on a couple of the occasions and understood what you were doing and understood what I was doing, I was really impacted when I learned about Reimagine Justice MD, and your coaching and the diversity and equity and all the wonderful work you were doing. I said, wait a minute. I understand some of the gaps of what we need in our labor and delivery, our birth care center as a whole. And so I said, I need to talk to our leadership. And if we can get this collaboration going, I think we can do more than move the needle. I think we can take a deep dive and really approach, address, and impact this structural racism.
Yes.
And so, thank God, when we met collectively, our leadership, she saw it. They saw it, and we birthed EEP.
Right. Transformational change, because knowledge without application is futile, right? Like, if you don't know it, if you can't apply what you know, then it's not helpful, right? So, and also you can't impact those you insult. So most of the time, what people were oftentimes finding was that, you hear racism, or you hear, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and everybody gets nervous and scared. And we had some of those conversations that we talked about, hey, you're about to get into the deep end of the pool here.
Right.
And they jumped in, and they were willing and ready and able, because we made it safe and we made it comfortable for them to be willing to have some of those really difficult and hard conversations, because of the fact that they could understand that racism doesn't have to be a dirty word. Genderism doesn't have to be a dirty word. And also they were motivated to do the work because, two chocolate girls that are walking around in the NICU, we didn't make it hard for them to be able to do that.
And we didn't necessarily make it personal, because as some of the comments came forth, they had done this work. They've done modules, they've done webinars. They made mention that we always felt that people were pointing the finger at us as white people. You've done this to us, you've done that. And, it always felt shaming. But they said, you two made us feel safe, and you made us feel like colleagues trying to impact this work together collectively.
Right.
And so when you do feel safe and you feel like you're one of the team members, you don't feel judged. You feel like someone wants to help you with a subject matter you know nothing about, which is very humbling. I'll never forget, one of the leaders called me in her office, and she was in tears. And she says, as a white woman, I don't know nothing about this. I know my field 100%, but this race stuff, I'm powerless.
Hi, my name is Diane, and I recently attended the Equity, Empathy, and Experience course authored by Dr. Danisha McCall and Dr. Candace Kelly. As a nurse leader in the women's health world, addressing birth inequities is one of my top priorities. This course provided the tools to identify and understand how our own personal biases shape and affect our words and actions, and equally important, how to lead our teams to reflect and identify the impact that their personal biases have on their patients' experience and outcomes. In addition, the course provided the framework for engaging in difficult and uncomfortable but necessary conversations with our team. I highly recommend this course to any healthcare professional, no matter where they are in their personal journey with the subject. And I applaud Dr. McCall and Dr. Kelly for creating meaningful and relevant content in a format that was highly engaging.